Seniors who are going to be sharing with us to come on up and take a seat. We're going to have kind of a fireside chat today. So come on up, you guys, while we're getting everything situated. All right, so being that it's Senior Chapel, we wanted to give the seniors some time to share a little bit from their life, from their heart. And so together, I met with these guys and we've discussed and talked over a few different questions, some things they want to share, some things they want to leave with you before they make their exit here in just a couple of weeks. And so I'm just going to open us up with a word of prayer, pray for them, as I'm sure they're a little nervous just to get the jitters out, but they'll be able to share well for you today. Let's pray. God, thank you again for this time. Thank you for today. Thank you for the privilege to be in a Christian school, God, where we can sing, where we can worship, where we can share openly and freely about you, God, the love that you have for us and what you've done in our life. I pray for these guys as they get ready to share. I pray that you work through them, God, and speak through them, and that just something that they would share would connect with somebody here today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so our first question, we're going to do it a panel style, so there may be one or two or three that share each question. We have 4 questions for today. The first question is, how have you grown spiritually during high school? So what's taken place, what's happened, how have you grown, how have you developed? So anybody take it away. Okay. Oh, and let's introduce ourselves real quick. So say your name and go ahead and pass the mic.
Okay, my name's Gina.
My name is Lily.
My name is Sailor.
My name is Jasmine.
I'm Hannah.
My name is Paul.
All right, so Gina, you're going to take it first.
Okay, so I used to not be like super plugged into anything spiritually at the beginning of high school because I was just like busy or I just didn't feel like it was like super important. But in my sophomore, like the end of sophomore year and the beginning of my junior year, I got plugged into a youth group and I found really amazing community within that youth group. And I think it's really great to have those people like holding you accountable and to have you pointed to the best direction of your life, even if you're all at the same place spiritually or if you're in different places, just having that community to be there for you, even like through the good and the bad. And that's really helped me within my faith, is just having those really good people around me.
Awesome. Anybody else?
For me, high school brought a lot of different trials and seasons of conflict, and just realizing that like to get through all of those things, that God is the answer for that, and not running to like trying to stay busy to kind of like numb all the craziness, but going to God, because that was like the real source of peace, and that's got me through that.
Okay, so for me personally, my freshman year, I lost a lot of people, and when you lose a lot of people, you have to reach out to something, and thank God I reached out to God, and when I reached out to him and I developed that bond with him and that crave to hear more about his word, he placed people in my life who were also good for me, so like friends that were also grounded in his word, and they helped me learn more about him. And through that, I found community at my church with these friends. I started going to Bible study, and I just grew a lot. And even throughout high school, like I still went through bumps and stuff, but I still had that ground of people at Bible study and at youth group and at church that I could always go back to. And so when I would, like be in a tough spot, I would go back to those places, and it's just like kind of like a pick-me-up, but it reminds you that like, even though everybody else leaves you, like God's never going to leave you. So that's how I grew.
All right. Next question. What advice would you give to underclassmen, to everybody sitting in here, now that you guys are mature, wise, aged seniors? What advice would you leave for them?
My biggest takeaway from high school mentally was just people don't care about things as much as you think they care about things. I know it's really hard to like worry about like what you're gonna wear or what you're gonna say or what you're gonna do basing off other people's opinions, but I can guarantee you everyone's so worried about their own lives that like no one's really looking into yours as deep as you think that they are. So just do whatever makes you happy, whatever fulfills you, whatever you need to do, and not like based off of what other people or what you think other people want you to do.
Okay, so my first piece of advice is in regards to classmates, to include others and don't be exclusive. So for example, if you see a new student sitting by themselves at lunch, get up and go sit with them, because whenever I think to myself how good it would make me feel if someone came and sat with me and was welcoming towards me. And then my second piece of advice is don't feel pressured to conform to others' opinions or actions, because although it may seem like the easy thing to do, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for you to be doing. And true friends will encourage you and support your decision and won't judge you for it.
Okay, so my piece of advice is to avoid drama at all costs. So your body, it's a temple. So your body is a temple, and what you think about and what you fill your mind with is going to consume your life, and it's going to mess with your relationship with God, your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with others. Because if you are constantly talking about others, you're constantly dragging people down, then when you look at yourself, you're going to start picking out negative things. And that's going to be mentally draining for yourself, and it's just going to drain you, and it's going to mess up your whole high school experience. So you just have to have a pure heart and just constantly forgive others. And yes, all of us are human, so we just have to, yes, this person hurt me, but God, you forgave me, so I'm going to forgive them.
Paul.
I would say that my advice would be just to be kind to one another. I mean, it's not very hard to do. Just don't be mean to each other. And I would also say don't care so much about what people think, because realistically, when you're out of high school, you're probably going to talk to maybe 10 people that you knew, if that. So just don't get too hung up on others' opinions about things that don't matter. Just focus on yourself and then improving.
All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Ashton to come on up. We've got a scripture reading that's going to tie into our next question. So, we can put that up.
Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice.
All right, thank you, Ashton. You've got to them. Give it up for Ashton. Mr. All right, my next question is kind of similar to the one we just did, a little more detailed. What advice would you give these guys on creating godly friendships, relationships, even dating, things like that, as they're thinking about that, looking towards that? What kind of advice would you give there?
Okay, so towards friendships, I would say be vulnerable with them. Like, they can't help you get through stuff if they don't know. I think we all like to put this guard up and put this front that, like, everything's fine and, like, everything in our life is perfect, especially through social media. But, like, once you have those true good friendships, then it's easy to be vulnerable with them and open up. For dating, just make sure that you can tell the difference between a godly woman and man and just someone that knows Christ, because people that know God and they have a relationship with them, it's way easier to be in a relationship dating with them than someone that just is putting on a front. So
I said to find friends who genuinely want to grow you closer to Christ and who do, and who kind of live that out, and also being the right person for your friend or whatever relationship that you're in, and someone who gives you godly advice, not personal advice.
So Ashton just read Psalms 27:9, and it basically talks about how, like, a godly friend, they'll have the fragrance of God and, like, the presence of God. So whenever you're looking at your friends, you should have friends who have the characteristics of God, which is love, joy, peace, and they're pushing your relationship with God. And whenever you surround yourself with people who love God and pursuing God, and even just loving God, but also they're supporting your goals, your dreams, and desires, it's just so much healthier, and it will just help you pour into others and serve each other and push into achieving your goals. So just have good friends who are pursuing God and who are trying to better their life.
So I would say for this, like I said before, creating friendships at church, and but also aside from church, you'll find friends just maybe not at church or not at a Bible study or whatnot, but with those friends, just having good discernment, I think, but praying that God gives you that discernment. Because, you know, our fleshly thoughts and what we think is a good friend is going to be so different from, like, what our spirit says is a good friend, and listening to that. And, like, for me, I just pray, like, God, like, close any doors of any friendships that need to be, and open the ones that need to be. And then just being open, like having an open heart. Like if someone comes up to you, it's not someone you usually talk to them, because that could be God opening that door. If somebody, you know, does something that, you know, may hurt you, like, yes, forgive them, but if it's repetitive, like, know that that might be God closing that door, and you have to say goodbye to that friendship. And it, you know, it sucks, but we have to be able to listen to that, because if we don't, we'll end up just getting hurt, and it'll help us grow spiritually too, because when we sometimes close the door to a friendship that's not good for us, we open a door to another one that can be very fruitful for us.
Sorry, I know this doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but I'd say that generally you want to have quality over quantity. It's much better to have just a few very good, genuine friends rather than maybe a lot of people who you get along with and who maybe further you socially. So it's good to have, again, just a couple of people in your life who you can really depend on and who you're probably going to know for a very long time over just being maybe well-liked and popular amongst everybody, I'd say.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Our last question for today: how have you sensed God's calling for the next steps for your life? These guys are all going to be graduating like you, faced with these challenges. How have you sensed that, determined that? Go ahead.
For me, it was by surrendering my idea of success, because when I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do after high school, I was like, I want to have a career that's successful and that like I personally want to do. But when I surrendered that and I was like listening to what God wanted me to do, I realized that his idea of success and my idea of success were completely different, and that I know that if I align my life with what God has called upon my life, that he's going to bless it and it'll turn out to be something great.
Okay, so a few ways that I sense God's calling in my life is seeking his will through prayer, and then trusting and not being anxious, because the opposite of trust is fear and doubt. And I'm also a firm believer in that God opens and closes doors for a purpose and for a reason. And also coming from a small school and getting ready to attend one of the largest universities in the U.S. Go Gators. It can be a big transition. So I'm really excited for the opportunity to shine God's light to such a dark world and glorifying him and his kingdom.
So kind of what they were saying, just to trust in God and his Holy Spirit, because God lives within you, and whenever you're making decisions, you just have to like think about the way that God is lining your life up, and that you have to look at, okay, so if I go to this place, am I going to grow in God? And do I feel his presence? And do I feel happy and joyful? Or do I feel like there's chaos there? So you kind of just have to rely on God and just listen and look for signs and just trust God.
Yeah, I think for me too, it's like keeping your focus on things above. Like the Bible says to keep your focus like on things above. So, you know, when looking at schools and stuff, I had two really good schools picked out. I had Liberty University and Southeastern University, and I had to determine the difference between what would grow me more in what I wanted to do versus what would grow me more spiritually, because I wanted to go to a Christian school, and I knew that's where I needed to be. And both of them had everything that I needed to do, everything that I want, but I was just being selfish and thinking about one way and how it would grow me so much in like what I wanted to do versus like another way that would grow me spiritually. And I remember telling Jazzy, I was like, I need a burning bush experience. Like, I have no idea what to do. Decision week was like 2 weeks, like, and I had just made my decision. Southeastern University. Anyways, but so when making the decision, I was just praying a lot, and there were two very big verses that were kind of carrying me. One of them was the verse that says, and I can't quote it off the top of my head, but trust in the Lord with all your heart, and He will make straight your paths. And then the verse that, it's like a whole chapter, and it talks about how our will is different than His will, and just realizing that God speaks in minute ways too, because a lot of the times you think that, God's gonna like shake you and be like, hey, this is what you need to do, but a lot of times it's by like your life situations that are happening at the moment. Like I was looking at like, the friends that I had at the time, and then, things that were going on at home, and just connecting all the dots together and realizing like, this is the path that God's putting me in, and just being so aware of where He's already brought you and what His purpose might be. Because a lot of times I would look back and I'd be like, okay, this is where I was. How could this relate to where He's going to put me? And just being in tune to that, because God still works through your past. So, like, I had to, reflect on that and, realize that, like, He's working through everything, and He's working it for my good. And just trusting it, even though it's scary, whether it's, several miles away or it's not very far at all, like, just trusting it, and, what you feel deep inside and you feel peace about, and you feel like it's going to be an easy transition, that's the one.
Alright, we'll give it up for our seniors. They did a great job. We're going to ask the praise team to come up, and we're going to close out with one more song. We've got Jazzy. She's going to lead us in our closing song. So if you guys would stand and sing this with us.